Okay, everybody. Well, welcome back to First Bite. Y'all, we are breaking new ground today because I've never had anything to do with film or production or supported anything like that. And yet here we are in our, I don't know if this is our 7th or 8th season, but we're doing something new. So I am incredibly honored to introduce our guest. His name is Josh Shah. And Josh is a speech pathologist, first and foremost. He works in the South Bay area over in California, Fremont, California. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology from 2017, a master's in speech therapy from 2023. But y'all, he's also a filmmaker. And I just think that's beautiful. So he's doing home health and he's writing films, and his team reached out and shared information about his film initiation on First Bite on Instagram. And it's all about a young man who has a stutter. And this is something that I don't work with. So that intrigued me even more. So, hi.
Hey, Michelle. Thank you for the very, very humbling introduction there. It's something new for me as well.
I have so many questions. Okay. Take me from the beginning. How in the world, there goes Waffles accessing her buttons to communicate her food is empty. We also trained Waffles on AAC. Might be a pediatric therapist when. But how did you find out about the world of speech therapy? Because we had a lovely little sidebar talk beforehand, and he told me a little bit about his program, and it sounds wonderful.
Right. It was a wonderful program that I was a part of at San Jose State University. I graduated in summer 2023, but before that, I like to think that my parents really set me up for success. I owe everything to them. I think we all owe everything to our parents. We're lucky enough to have amazing parents, but my parents are educators. They work in Fremont, actually, for the School of the Blind over there. And ever since, I was a kid, I would always volunteer during summers. And that's where I really got exposed to special education and the different ways that you could, just get yourself involved with community. So stemming from that, I was like, okay, I like this world, but then I guess people tell me because I'm a Gemini, there's some creativity there that's just willing to get out, that wants to get out. So I made my way to LA for about like maybe a year or two or so, just trying to find myself, writing, getting myself involved briefly with the comedy scene over there, doing a bunch of improv, that kind of thing. And then I landed, by that point, I had my degree in psychology. I had my BA in psychology. So I was working as a TA for an individual on the spectrum, working as his personal buddy, pretty much, just guiding him along his high school program. And it was for a high school for actually gifted individuals who were in the arts. But specifically what we would do is we would go from one classroom to the next. And then, and he also had a speech language pathologist. And I was like, oh, wait, there's that thing coming back into my life again.
Yep.
Let's think about that. Let's talk about that. And then I kind of just fell in love with the craft, with the kind of social skills that we were working on, the kind of the beautiful engagement that the speech language pathologist, the openness, the warmness that she approached every session with my student, that got me inspired to come back to the Bay Area and then just start a grad program. Luckily, they accepted me in 2020. Nothing was really happening in the world at that point, right? So it was go time from there. And then after that, and then I just stayed the course and continued to work in that craft.
Okay, you say 2020, and I have a flashback to our children were in a Mandarin immersion program back in Columbia, South Carolina. And Bear would only go to school dressed in costumes at that stage of his life. My youngest, he was 4. So there we were attempting to do telehealth with Bear in a Batman costume, and we called him Bat Bear, with a bunch of other 4-year-olds learning Mandarin on a Zoom screen, while my oldest, who's a little neurospicy, it runs in our family, and my grad student would come over to do telehealth for grad sessions, and Goose would hide in the kitchen pantry, beeping like a robot because she was beautiful. And he didn't know how to speak to her. So he hid in the kitchen pantry, just beeping really fast. Beep, beep, beep. And then when he self-regulated, his beeps would slow and he would come out, and Julie would be like, is he okay? And I'm like, yep, we're working through it. It's social skills. So yes, social skills for 2020. There's a theme, honey.
And there was something ironic about working on social skills in a virtual world too. That was completely new. And I know we've been working on that for the past couple of years in the field as well, with augmenting teletherapy, but all fun and games.
Yes. Well, okay. So I feel like your life walk perfectly overlapped to lead you to, you're the primary author on this film, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So I wrote this, I would say, in my final year of grad school, I guess. So in 2023, that's when I really put the pen to the paper and decided to write something actually somewhat dramatic and I would say somewhat reflective of a couple of patients I had at that point. Because as you go through grad school, everyone knows this, but you have to do like these internships, externships. And I had this specific externship at this school, at this middle school. And I had the pleasure of leading this stuttering group when I was over there. And that's when I really got immersed into the world of stuttering and the kind of nuances and the flavors and the kind of like questions that come up and controversies that come up. And that stuck around with me. And at that same time, I was reading this book. I don't know if you ever read this book, but it was called, and this was like grad school, like reading. You gotta inhale this content, okay, before you engage with other kind of content. But it was this book called by Oliver Sacks. He was this neurologist, but he would. It was called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat," I believe.
I would make my grad babies read that. I love that book. Yes.
Right. And that book, if your listeners haven't read it yet, please do. Please just put down this podcast for a second. Go read that book. It's a really short read, but it's such a beautiful, like the way he's able to convey these different stories of individuals with neurogenic, doesn't have to be necessarily communication, but it was just, he was working with a bunch of just diverse patients who, I remember on one account, they're suffering from temporal epilepsy. And just the different accounts that he was able to kind of personally surround himself with and write that honestly and depict it to such a degree where I was totally inspired just by that facet where, we get so absorbed by the clinical side of things occasionally. And now that I'm in home health, I'm kind of getting that side coming in terms of experience rather than my school-based experience, where we kind of separate ourselves from the individual that we're treating, right? There's like that wall that kind of comes up. But this is the first book that I kind of exposed myself where, sometimes it's okay to bleed in. Sometimes there's a little bit of gray when it comes to your interactions with your patients. That personality, that personability is so important. So that kind of bled into the writing a little bit as I was putting the paper to pen for initiation.
The My Stroke of Insight. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, honey, that was mine. I was a graduate student working at Riverside Rehab Institute, RI. It was LTAC, long-term acute care, which is really funny because I knew I was only going to work with adults, right? All through grad school. I'm only going to work with adults. And I worked with adults, I think maybe a year and a half. And it's been all Pete since. But like, we think
You
we
find
know what
yourself.
we want.
Right.
Yeah. But my stroke of insight was that for me. It was written by a neuroscientist who also did her specialty was like dissecting the brains and laying out like the roadmap of the brain. And then bless her heart, she had a stroke, a
Oh,
significant stroke.
right. Right.
Yeah. But like it's all about how she viewed signs and symptoms and then recovery and how it changed her work subsequently. And so, folks, I will make sure that I link Oliver Sacks and my stroke of insight, to the show notes. But yeah, those are powerful books because, man, when you are sponging everything in and creating the foundation for your career, it opens a doorway into the life of those that we've been called to serve, right? And
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
to me, there's something beautiful about. I am much older than you, love, but there's a
Don't
lot of
say that.
Botox.
Don't say that.
No, it's good. It's good. There's Botox. We're happy.
There's
I
so
own
much
my
for me to respond
42.
to that. I can't respond.
No, but the lived experience that's taught in grad school now, the focus on respective cultures that's taught now was not a initiative 20 years ago, right? And so to have that veil lifted where we can glimpse into another's walk is so empowering and can shape how we serve if we're open to it, right? Like it
Mm.
really does. It's one of those evidence-based triangles. And that's what hooked me with the plot line. So, guys, I'm going to read a brief synopsis of Initiation. It's all about Jay, who's an unemployed young adult who stutters. He lives with his single mom and his younger brother, Nate, in a dilapidated apartment. Despite the unconditional love and support of his family members, Jay feels like a burden and is desperate to help provide for himself and his family. That's relatable. He prepares for an entry-level job opportunity, but is offered a chance to join a local gang and find a place where he belongs. However, in order to initiate into the gang, he must first rob a food truck, which I grew up very sheltered. I mean, upper middle class white family, like token grad student, right? Like I'm the 90 some percent, let's be honest. So like this is all such a foreign concept, but at the same time, because of my life and where I've moved and the communities that I've served, I've been able to have that veil lifted, right?
Right.
So I have to think, though, the responsibility that you must feel as a storyteller when you're portraying and you're writing about disability and communication differences. How does that sit? What goes through your mind when you're reading and writing this?
So I've been fortunate enough to kind of work with a story for the past couple of years or so, and I think time really allows you to sit with your characters, sit with the story, see if it makes sense, see if it's truly reflective. And of course, I'm not saying that this is a historical drama or anything like that. It's not reflective of real history. But I like to imagine that these characters really do exist because they are out there. They're archetypes that represent real people who, struggle with thinking about Medi-Cal, struggle who think about, insurance coverage. You
Wait,
know,
what's Medi-Cal?
Medi-Cal is, our form of generalized insurance over here in California.
Okay.
So it's,
Thank you for
you reach a
translating.
level of income, you don't have Medi-Cal anymore, right? I was blessed
Okay.
to be on it in grad school when I didn't have that income coming in just yet. But it's a blanket kind of guarantee that you're going to have health coverage. but I like to work with, I like to work within those kinds of dimensions where they're real struggles, and I have that responsibility. I feel that responsibility to kind of convey these characters in a way where, we can be all serious and think about these kinds of stakes, such as, in Jay's case, he's got to overcome, in quotation marks, his stutter in order to have a true job. If he doesn't do that, then his only other opportunity is joining this other community that's out there, but they're doing bad things in the community. They're not really helping out the community itself, but that's his only opportunity. He's just I'm obsessed with writing to individuals who are not exactly the hero, the anti-heroes, I guess, if you will. Hopefully we root for Jay along the way here, as he's struggling not only with this internal struggle of, identity, facing the idea of who he is actually as a stutter. Is he an individual with a stutter, or is he a stutterer himself? Right? Is he going to embrace his disability identity, versus the external pressures that are coming at him, such as raising enough funds, income, supporting his little brother, getting his mom out of this apartment. There's just so many different pressures coming his way. And then I like to have a little bit of fun, in my writing. I like to see where the comedy lies, because, you can't have all these
Human
different
glue.
Yeah, you need the glue. You need the glue. That's human connection right there. I think, and comedy is so important to have that. And coming from the improv background, I was like, okay, how do I take this really somewhat, I guess people would interpret it as being a dark story? How do I make it come alive and feel and feel funny and actually somewhat relatable? And again, not laughing at the condition itself, the comedy of it, but the means to overcome that struggle, which in Jay's case would be his stutter, because he's got to do this task of robbing a food truck. And yeah, that food truck thing came out of nowhere too when I was writing this thing. I'm in Sunnyvale, so that's all I see living around here. I see a bunch of food trucks. That's what we have in California. Luckily, we can still be outside,
Yes,
and
that's
out there.
right. Folks, for frame of reference, today your girl broke a pickaxe because the ice was so thick, and I have used it for 2 days straight. For selfish purposes, I needed to go out and get a mani-pedi because tomorrow I'm doing headshots for the new podcast cover. So please know when you see that fabulous picture that it took a broken pickaxe and a lovely neighbor who volunteered with a skid hoe, back row. Words
Something
that
along those
I
lines.
don't, yeah, fancy equipment that's above my pay grade. And he got us out and he wouldn't let me pay him. So I ended up giving him a LaCroix Sunshine, and that's all he accepted. And bless his heart, he was just sweet as sugar. And yeah, so thank you to our guardian angel and the pickaxe and the bitter freaking cold. So we don't have food trucks right now, sweetie.
No,
We have no food truck for the foreseeable future. But if you show up in April, Virginia will thaw. The ice will have gone away, hopefully on multiple levels, literally and figuratively. And yeah, then we'll have little pop-ups on Saturdays, and it's kind of lovely. So Stanton, you should come to Stanton. They have you would actually enjoy this. My youngest is at Silverline Theater Exchange. He takes an improv class on Monday nights to help with his social anxiety. But we have an improv theater here.
There it is. That's what I knew. We were finding the connection. We found it there. There it is, Michelle. It's an improv background. It captured one of us in a family, at least one person. That's it. That's that bug.
I mean, I feel like it gives you an opportunity to combat social anxiety, because when you're improv, you're like in a character and it's a different persona that you're giving. And that's, yeah. But it's about the balance there. But
I also look forward to that too, I guess. I've heard of individuals, stutters in particular, in entertaining that kind of, it's like a form of, not even a form of therapy, just a form of release as well, to get out of your skin just a bit, get out of the condition. And I've heard of improv classes structured for stuttering as well.
Yes.
because I mean, I think we all have, familiarized with different kind of stories. We have Drew Lynch. He's an amazing stuttering comedian himself. We have all these different like kind of amazing artists who happen to be stutterers, who engage with their art and they're able to express themselves. And for some reason, you don't really see that stutter come out, whether it be a block, partial stutter. It's very interesting, new breaking ground, but I think definitely worth looking into.
Yes. I worked part-time before we moved at University of South Carolina. Back in Columbia, adjunct, I taught their pediatric feeding disorder and dysphagia class. But their aphasia class, they have through NISHLA, they sponsor an aphasia theater. So for the adults post-stroke. And it's an amazing entity that once a year, normally in the spring, they'll host, they'll sell tickets, and it's for a play, and it's put on by actors who are all aphasic. And it's one of the most powerful evenings, folks. If y'all want to support and visit a local community theater, check out University of South Carolina, not Southern California, but South Carolina's aphasia theater. So it's just, but there's power in that. There's power in having representation in the community. And I just, y'all know folks give me the questions beforehand, but your questions were so powerful and meaningful because it does, it's something that we fret over, right? Accurate representation. Like when you're working with this character and you're building this character into a plot line and then he's going on film, how did you make sure that there was accurate representation of the communication differences? And how did you make it feel authentic? And then I have to wonder, I mean, like, were you there when they were filming to like coach the lead actor? Like, what did that look like?
So we're in the process of really establishing that connection, because that's everything, right? If there's no buy-in from an audience looking at this depiction of stuttering as genuine, then there's going to be like little to no support, and that's the fault of the artist, I believe, trying to do that interpretation. So I've been making really valid strides to communicate with people in the community itself, reaching out to stakeholders in the community, stutters, a couple of comedians who happen to stutter as well. But in particular, I've been doing this really like kind of cute series called Taco Talks to help our promotion of our film, because the story takes place at a food truck. So I'm interviewing cast, and we go to like a food truck, get some tacos, hopefully on a Tuesday. And we just had one last Tuesday with an artist who's helping us out with our movie poster, actually, and she happens to stutter herself. And we just had an honest conversation with her and our lead actor, and our lead actor was just trying to get the flow of the stutter, really understand her approach to the world and what she's been struggling with. And one of her very valid points was, and I think this will be a theme for the film itself, is speech therapy has been long involved with trying to, I guess, quote unquote, solve stuttering. How do you induce more fluency? How do you gain fluency? Because that's what we all want. We want fluency. We want perfect melodic pitch and tone, and we want all that stuff. But when I was having this heart to heart with her, during this conversation, this really awesome taco talk, she was saying, I'm just trying to gain some sort of fluency of life. I want to be able to be okay with going through my stutter. I want to be, supported through that versus being pushed in this other direction of something that I'm not. And that was so powerful to have that openness, that not only coming from her, but also from my lead actor as well. And that's how we, I think, earn the trust of a community that we're trying to represent, where, these other Hollywood depictions, not to say that they're wrong. But then, the end goal she was explaining to us, the end goal of the King's Speech, I think is like one of the most well-known movies about stuttering.
Yes.
Is how does he overcome it? How does he overcome his stutter to become fluent? But what if the goal of a movie is not that? What if it's just we accept ourself to be ourselves? Like it's the most simple kind of approach, I guess, in terms of self-acceptance. But this is what Jay is struggling throughout the film. He's trying to distance himself from the idea of having this thing that he thinks is setting him back, but actually it's this thing that makes him far unique as an individual.
I do not assess or treat a fluency disorder. This is not in my wheelhouse. And I never felt comfortable doing it. And I had a brilliant professor, Dr. Runyon, Runyon's Rules. That's what I remember from my fluency class. But he gave an assignment in grad school to go to a drive-through and order something through the drive-through, but with a stutter. And, we had to pick out from a hat if it was like on initiation, what the sound was. Like he had given us like the specific type of stutter that we have. And bless, I don't remember what mine was, but I remember the fear placing the order that somebody would think I was making fun of somebody doing it.
Right.
And when I did do it, in that moment, I had fear of being made fun of for having, a pretend stutter. And I understand the empathy in the assignment, and I understand the purpose of the assignment, right? But it was hard. It was one of those, like my stroke of insight. It was one of those assignments that, 20 years later, I still remember that moment at McDonald's. And good Lord, I haven't had McDonald's in probably like 18 years, but but I say that because it was so tearfully impactful, right? And then it has made me, I don't know, more aware and patient in moments when I do encounter somebody that has word retrieval issues or delays or is a clutterer. But there's those moments when, as the communication partner, where I encounter somebody who has a disfluency in a setting where it kind of took me back. One was waiting tables. I went somewhere for brunch with my mom one time, and we were having mimosas, obviously, and yep, and the waiter was a stutterer, and mom was like, "Well, can't you help him?" And I'm like, "No, he seems really happy. Like that doesn't." Trying to flip the script. Also, bless my mom's heart, I had to get re-diagnosed with ADHD a couple months ago, and she goes, "Well, how much of the ADHD do you have?" And I was like, "Mom, I have all of the ADHD." So I have all of it. But I say all of this because it brings me back to when you capture the authenticity of a difference on film, when it feels real, it's another opportunity for those that don't have that lived experience to have a moment of empathy, to have a moment of patience. Who says practice the pause? I can't remember. That's somebody famous's quote, practice the pause.
I'm trying to remember. It's not coming up for me too, but yes. Yeah.
Dude, but like there it is. Like you practice the pause and then you give that moment of grace. And I don't know. So when you talk about this and the depth of character building that you're putting on screen, and I also love that the amount of players involved behind the scenes are disfluent. That's phenomenal. What about the language? Do individuals want to be, does she want to be identified as a person who stutters or disfluent, or Like that's something that I fret over is what is the terminology that I can use to describe without causing offense? Because that would break my heart.
Right, right. She actually didn't have much to say on that matter specifically, but
Okay.
I would bet that it ranges. You know, people like it's people have such like a beautiful variance on what they prefer and what they don't prefer. And some people prefer, you know, to be part of the community. They can really embrace their disability identity. Other individuals want to stay away from that. And that's completely fine as well. Right. It's a matter of just being in that balance, I guess, and figuring that out for yourself, I guess. And I'll say to what you were saying too, Michelle, I think we had the same grad program, I would say. I think we were in the same class. I had that same exact assignment. And we had to do that, and it was yeah, definitely shocking how personal and involved it is actually just to have those normal mundane kind of social interactions that you kind of take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And I checked in, you know, with my cohort after, you know, we were supposed to do the assignment, and about, I would say, 1 out of 4 individuals actually, because we had to do not only one social interaction, we had to do 3 social interactions. I think one
Oh,
person only did
no.
one all the way. I stopped at 2 social interactions. I'll be honest, just because I was so emotionally invested, and just I couldn't go through it. It is a tough existence. Um, and everyone else in that class agreed they couldn't go through with the assignment. So the assignment itself, it was not about the completion, but it was just about the overall experience. And for lack of a better word, the cringiness that can come from of of
Yes.
signals, I guess. And you know, this is so. And I'll also speak a little bit towards film is has always been really very special for me. I think it's something that I can connect to with my father personally, where you know we can just sit down, have a good laugh at a film, and as guys do, we don't really have to talk that much. You know, we just watch something, and then you know it'll come in eventually, and we'll probably eventually talk about it. Um, but as
I,
far as
I
being
gesture over here because that's my husband and my sons, and they all watch. And I sit over here in my reading nook and read my trashy romance novels while they connect through film because they don't talk about it. And I'm like, ooh, but yes,
right, yeah.
continue. Sorry.
No, no, no. I think you're right. It's like a sensory experience that you don't really have to talk about. You can talk about it if you really wanted to, but if you're watching like John Wick, it's more about I want to see action. I want to see
Yes.
violence. Um, but I have the other side, this SLP side too, right? Which is I'm looking towards these kind of stories, and not only this story for initiation, I want to tell more stories in the future as well about the
Yes.
individuals that we kind of you know involve ourselves with on a daily basis, and be honest and really promote. I think I heard this quote before. It was something to do with how film is the true can be one of the truest empathetic machines out there. It really puts you in the shoes of the supposed other. And I mean, if you watch movies like The City of God, if you watch movies that are just totally out of your wheelhouse, you have a different perspective if the filmmaker is able to own up to that responsibility and convey the situations with genuine thought and feeling.
The piano. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, the pianist, is that what it is with
No. The piano. I think it's called The Piano.
really?
It's about. It came out. Oh goodness, The Piano movie. Um, yes, The Piano movie came out in 1993. So you were probably born then. I was 10. But
No one's keeping
this
count.
movie, this movie, bless her heart. What is this actor's name? Holly Hunter was the lead actress in the movie. She plays a character who has selective mutism, induced by trauma. And it's just, God, I watched that probably way too young in retrospect, but it it was so profound to me that this woman's trauma rendered her voiceless. And then, she becomes really depressed, and, it's set in like the 1800s, I think in New Zealand, or, one of the Southern Pacific Islands. And she's married to a missionary, I think is like loosely a vignette in the background. And then who's very abusive. And she ends up finding her soulmate with her child. And like she chooses life. And at the end, she talks about just starting to find her voice. And you see her doing like, it looks like rudimentary speech therapy from like the 1800s. But what I hung on to was the impact of trauma and how it took away this woman's voice, right? And then to see the little ones that I've worked with over the years that have selective mutism, and seeing the trauma as it's presented in their lives, like it takes me back to the piano, to that movie, to watching that. You gotta see it. Oh, it's so good.
The way you're describing it, it's exactly in my wheelhouse. It's exactly the type of films I want to write for the future. I just completed my next scripts on talking about autism, actually, and involving more like natural aspects to that as well. But I think it's the struggle, right? It's a struggle to get out your thoughts. This is what I signed up for. This is what we both signed up for when we're talking to individuals with communication disorders, all of the above. It's really just trying to get out. And in what form does that come? Does that come through low tech communication, high tech, mid tech? What does that look like? And yeah, I mean, that's what it's really just stemmed from, I think, my own childhood, hanging out with, I was lucky to have actually, one of the first SLPs I encountered was a big sprawling man who just actually retired. And he was a former athlete, but he was the first male SLP I actually encountered. So maybe that kind of set the course for myself. But getting more to the point, that's exactly what we do. We see these examples in film, represented narratives that we have never probably even come across before. But especially if they're related to communication, identity, then it's okay. We're seeing a push more in the right direction. I think we're seeing a little bit more of that too now. With films like, I don't know if you've seen The Sound of Metal. That was fantastic. Came out a couple years ago.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, please check that out. It's about a drummer who's in the process of losing his hearing. That's as simple as that. And he's like a punk band drummer who's in the process of losing his own hearing. So it's such a good indie drama. And that was like one of the more recent examples of conveying, not only, this person is just a person who's losing their hearing, but they have like this other completely, like they have a profession, they have a different life, they have loved ones. It's such a 3-dimensional, depiction of what this disorder looks like, versus, just more, again, kind of like we were talking about before, a little bit more of like how we temporarily get to know our clients, at least in home health, how it goes is, and then you kind of have to reassess and work with another client eventually. But with these films, at least they're kind of like permanent depictions, and hopefully they'll last for the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that to kind of enjoy these kind of stories. So just accumulated knowledge.
Yes. Wonder. I haven't read the book Wonder, but my youngest son, his teacher, they read Wonder in class. And then when the movie came out, the whole class went and saw the movie. And he came home and I was like, so what'd you think? And he was like, it was hard on my heart. And I was like, which is a phrase that we use in the family. My grandma always said, when something, it's hard on your heart, right? And I was like, why? And he was like, they were so mean to him because he looked different. And I was just like, but it hits him a little bit deeper. Bless him. He is my little peacemaker. But my husband has an older autistic brother who's microcephalic, has CP, autism, cortical vision impairment. And I've noticed as they've grown, they've gotten really protective of if somebody's looking funny at Uncle Matthew. And so because it's that need to protect, right? His words just kind of resonated. And I was like, yeah, but that's okay. We know how to choose kindness. We call ourselves Pack Dawson. We used to have 2 dogs, but they are now on the mantle because they were old babies. And this is how we got Waffles of Doom. Yes. But Pack Dawson chooses kindness. And yeah, but it's the power of the message in the film. That's what he carried away. Even at 11, a tiny farfanugan of a thing, he got it. But in your film for initiation, there's a running theme about power. So what is can you describe that? Like how communication is tied to power and what the message is there?
Yeah. I mean, so there's power, right, in different economical, I guess, approaches to life. Like job can give you power. I guess your occupation, right? Same thing. Your occupation can give you power. Your ability to speak gives you power. If I notice that we're not conveying our thoughts, if we don't even have enough breath in a single moment to convey what we want to speak, then there's that kind of like, it's related a little bit more to masculinity, I would say, where, as to be seen as the strong, male figure, you have to be eloquent, you have to be coherent, you have to be somewhat calm as well. You're conveying power, your chest is out, proud of you're I think you're the pack leader. Anything. I'm thinking gorillas for some reason. I don't know why. But I think
you're missing the walk. You're missing the walk because I got to tell you, for me, for the Mr. Dawson, it was the way, because he is calm, he is eloquent, he is the rock to bless his wife's ADHD. But it's that walk that you're like, yes, you are the alpha.
Right. Which is, I think, one of our ways of finding familiarity in life, right? Consistency. We want to see consistency, consistent patterns of behavior. But unfortunately, I don't think stuttering, there is a consistency in stuttering, actually. We can count on the fact that we are going to maybe have disfluency. Maybe we have to think about our words a little bit more carefully. But more specifically, we kind of talked about it before, Michelle. I think there's power in the pause. There's power in the affirmations that we kind of give ourselves to be able to be the best form of communicator there is. And I think the choices that Jay is making throughout the film directly relates to, I don't want to give it my interpretation of the film. I think an artistic, you have to remove yourself from the art when you make it. But my interpretation would be the result of just trying to get more power, trying to become his own, if anything, in society, which I think you should do. I think you should, be independent. You should be able to do all these kind of rights that are given to us. But by way of communication, that's the single thing that he's lacking. He's not steady. He's not a steady rock. He knows that consistently, and I imagine his character to be to have more of a developmental issue when it comes to his stuttering, stemming from maybe our abuse when he was a kid. A little bit of backstory there, I guess, right? But there's lack of power in this certain regard, not only in the stutter, but also his place in society. After college, he's losing medical coverage because in the state of California, you lose access to Medi-Cal at 26. At least when I was writing the story, and once you lose access, not your own access, but you kind of get off of your parents' access to Medi-Cal around 26 or so. Specifically, let me clarify that a bit. And when that happens, it feels like you're a free bird. You're let go, and you have to kind of maintain your own and your own relationship to society. What does that look like? Do you get your health coverage? Do you work? Are you an independent contractor? What are you going to do about that? So I was talking to, Suzanne a little bit more about our stuttering artist who's come aboard, and we talked about that relationship between owning, I guess, your art specifically, and how that related to her own fluency, and how that has actually given her power in a way where through through her own artistic expression, she's been able to say, hey, I know that I'm, maybe not drawing or coloring within the lines itself anymore, but I know the structure. I know what I have to do. That has related to her own stuttering experience as well, where she has been like, okay, these goalposts have been set up by people who haven't stuttered, don't have a stutter, and they demand that I must be fluent. But I know that's not the case for me. That'll never be the case for me. So I'm not going to go towards those goalposts. I'm going to go towards my own goals. And that's, again, the fluency of life coming into hand here. And I would feel weird for not mentioning another key aspect of the project itself, but we have this amazing individual. He goes by the name of Paul. He's been part of this project for the last couple of years himself, but he's heavily involved with a stuttering society group on Facebook, where I connected with him originally. He's also an SLP by trade. I think he's retired by now. But we talked a little bit, and he sent me over his own autobiography of his own experiences of different therapies he's come across his whole life, assigned by other speech therapists, that really did not end up working for him, did not consistently work for him throughout his whole life. He's also a composer. He's a pianist. He's just this overall multi-dimensional dude. And he created our score. He created pretty much the score for the film itself. We took inspiration from this song he wrote I think in the 90s for the stuttering conference. And this song was just based off of intuition and feeling of sharing his experience with other stutterers at this amazing conference. And I wanted to take that. We worked with our composer on the project itself, and we kind of converted that to our own score. So I think those are two examples of how we can kind of regain our power, and I think that's through art, artistic expression. Not my own artistic expression, but the people attached to on this project, our collaborators so far, through Suzanne's perspective, through Paul's perspective. I think that's one way of doing it.
I have so many thoughts, but the first one that pops up is that have you ever seen The Holiday?
Yes, I have.
It's the Jack Black scene at the end where he writes the song for the little old man that goes up the steps, and he does it independently, and he regains his independence and his power and mobility. And there's the score playing that, Jack Black and, oh my gosh, what is that woman's name? She's beautiful. Kate
Winslet?
Kate Winslet, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, goals. She's talk about power, right? But that moment of recapturing that little old man's independence to his little song, to his score. But yes, that's what it made me think of. But when you talk about it was Suzanne's goalpost, all I can think about is those goalposts are symbolic of ableism. Those goalposts are dictated by individuals that don't have a disfluency, so they don't understand. And yet, we do have to acknowledge as a profession that our profession stems from an ableistic background, right? And it is not done with malice. It's just the nature of the field, right? But now that we know better, we do better. And instead of us setting the quote unquote goalpost, it's follow the client, the patient, the caregiver's lead and listen to them. And how do we supplement and support? And that's not just in individuals that stutter, but also within all walks that we work with.
Right. Yeah, that reminds me of, I think I've come into the field at the perfect time, just because this perspective is really out there now where, it's
Yes.
not about individual projection of ableism onto our clients, but it's more about child-led therapy. What does that look like?
Yes.
You know, I'm sure
It's
you
not
come
just
across
play.
at this play, right? It may look like it looks fun. Yeah, I enjoy
It's
it.
great.
I enjoyed it, working in the schools as well. But there is science behind it. There is logic behind it.
Yeah.
And there's affirmations behind it. There's just, ultimately, I think there's connection behind it. Understanding another human being from where they're coming from. Um, so I think that's ultimately what led me to, which draw me to film, not only because I think the love that I have for my father, but also for um, the love that film is able to kind of bring in terms of widening the perspectives of, yeah, people who occupy our field. Um, I always like to say, I think I began this project with the thought that, it is a project essentially about stuttering, but I think it's actually a project about disabilities in general and how well we can
Mhm.
relate to the just the formation of an identity and what that looks like, and like I mentioned before, you're going to have so much variance across, no matter what the disability is.
Yes. Okay. Before we get to our final question, I'm just genuinely curious if you could pick three movies. Like, what are you and your dad? Like, what are y'all's top three go to movies? Or your fiance? Like, do y'all have like, I mean, I know you said that she's in the animal world, so I'm assuming all the dogs have to live. Otherwise, I'm not watching the movie. But
Oh no,
like,
we're not watching Marley and Me. No, that's
yeah,
not.
no, not happening.
We're staying away from that. Oh man, between me and my dad, man, I think we always come back to this Indian movie called Three Idiots, and it's about a couple. It's a Bollywood film about just a couple of friends going through college and maintaining their life connections with one another. But we have actually have a tattoo of this common phrase that's in the movie itself. Because when trouble strikes the friends, and there's a lot to be said about like it's another issue, I think, side issue, but um, it goes into depths about like the prevalence of suicides in colleges in India and about the pressure that people go through over there. But every time the brothers, I mean the friends, they kind of go through these troubles and tribulations, they always say all is well, all is well. They tap their heart and they say all is well. So that's one thing I always share with my dad. And we all actually got that tattooed on her. Me and my brothers and my dad got that tattooed a couple of years back, actually. And as far as other movies go, I think we're just trashy 80s films, that's about a cop that just has to get back into the field again. He was on the verge of retirement and then he's got to get back in there. And there's a young rookie cop who's a little bit of a loose cannon. I think we love those kinds of stories. Yeah, that's our perspective.
I feel like this is very Beverly Hills Cop. Um,
Oh,
uh,
oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. We have Die Hard. That's like our Pac Dawson go to. Christmas doesn't start until Snape falls off the top of the tower because that's all they know. The lead actor is a Harry Potter crossover. So
You got
like,
Elf on the Shelf and you got Snape.
yes, well, we are not the elf. I'm not doing an Elf on the Shelf. That creepy little thing that like follows you around the house and no, not doing it. And the boys were like, what? How does Santa know we've made good choices? They used to ask this when we were little. I was like, don't worry. I got Santa. We text him. So, I mean, they're older now, but precious memories. But okay. Well, then the final question is kind of a big one, but how, when people watch this film, and I'm putting this out there for colleagues that we really, really do need to support initiation from, because it was written by an SLP, a colleague, and we support those, but also the message is powerful. But how do you hope this contributes to the conversations around accessibility and inclusion?
Yeah, that's a big one to end on. But
Yeah.
in terms of including as many people as possible, it goes back to, I think, what we were saying before about, I just hope that people who enjoy this film know the messages are coming across in this film. I think the ultimate message would be not only all is well, that's great, because I think I want to round out that story as well, coming into the feature itself, if we're lucky to have a feature. But my roundabout way of going about this would be that identity is up to the person that decides it. Identity is up to the individual. And that's the sentiment I really got from Suzanne when having, those kinds of conversations with her, where identity is not decided by, individuals that are external. It's really decided by the individual. And take that for however you want to take it as, but there's something essential in allowing an individual to experience life, the different stages of life, and how that is will bring up a more comprehensive understanding of not only their environment but themselves. So I guess identity is individual.
Yeah, but it is. And it requires us as clinicians to grow our own emotional intelligence and our own, dare I say, therapeutic presence to, I don't know, see the muchness, to quote Alice in Wonderland, in another, to help them find and embrace their identity. When you walk through life, and I am always the rose-colored glass girl, right? Like, glass is half full, everything's going to be fine, unless it's not. And then, dear God, I'm going to like nosedive off into hell in a handbasket. But like, you get one or the other. There's no happy in between. You're very patient, Mr. Dawson. He's sitting over there just smiling. But when you live a sheltered, privileged life, which I will acknowledge that I did, to be able to help support others, it does mean that we have to be willing to listen, right? So on that note, folks, there's some organizations that have been instrumental for growing me. The American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD, that's instrumental for waffles as well. Also, and AAPD has an amazing social media, Instagram account, Facebook account. Their advocacy and call to action is well freaking done, right? Also, the Down Syndrome Association, and full disclosure, my sister-in-law was their lobbyist for award-winning lobbyist, might I add, for a really long time before she left to become a lobbyist for a suicide, depression, mental health institute. But the work that they do for helping adults with Down syndrome and teens on the way identify their muchness and become leaders in the world, not just with Down syndrome, but leaders in the world in general. So please go check out the National Down Syndrome Society, so NDSS. And then in South Carolina, there's an entity called Able South Carolina. And that's where it started for me. Able South Carolina is an organization that works specifically to help individuals with disability, visible disabilities and invisible disabilities. So oftentimes like a traumatic brain injury, like you may not see that an individual has a traumatic brain injury, but it doesn't make their disability any less, right? But Able South Carolina works to advocate for those individuals to have independent, successful, healthy, safe living spaces. And I got hooked up with them through Carol Page, Dr. Carol Page, who was my AAC mentor back in South Carolina. Dr. Carol, thank you for changing my stars. But watching that organization grow and then watching how they specifically hired people with disabilities in leadership roles consistently. Kimberly Tissot, I think, is the executive director, or was for years. And brilliant, beautiful, bold, and a badass. And that is life goals. That's my affirmation every morning. I make the boys say their affirmations on the way to school after we say what we're grateful for. And I am brilliant, I am beautiful, I am bold, and I am a badass. And I have been called all of those things by students, actually, and I adopted it, and it makes me happy. But that woman embodies that. And having those organizations shape how we support those that we are called to serve, that has changed how I practice, but also seeing the overlap in the different medias that we consume, in social media, in literature, in the films, in the arts, all of those we can, y'all, if my 11-year-old can extrapolate a message, then we can too, right? But came out a little twangy. When I get opinionated, that happens. Okay, folks, with 5 minutes to go or less than that, the internet blipped. I'm blaming the ice storm or the universe or the fact that I'm reading Love It for Sighting and it's about UFOs. So go team.
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay, we were wrapping up final thoughts on extrapolating themes and messages and what you want people to walk away with. But what were your thoughts before it went?
Before we went kaploom, we got out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we were coming to a head where we were talking more about how identity is an individual experience. And I think my experience so far with speech language, with pathology and speech therapy in general, and the general history I've learned from it has been we're kind of extrapolating a definition or I guess an identity, and we're kind of putting that onto the expected way of being. And
Yeah.
I think anybody who can view this film in the future, Initiation, would appreciate not only the trials and tribulations that our main protagonist will go through, but also ultimately, I think the overall message is that I think the world will try to tell you this is the identity, this is the mold that you should fit into. But that is not the case. You have to find yourself. You have to find your own individual molding. We don't come from a cookie cutter society. We're not we all have our own individual perspectives and way of approaching life. And that is inclusive with disability identity as well.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Folks, seek to understand. I rattled through all of those different organizations because they've been meaningful and impactful, but they have taught me to seek to understand different perspectives and those lived experiences. So kind of like getting out of our own way. With respect to fluency, I think there's this Stuttering Foundation. I think this is correct, stutteringfoundation.org. And they have a plethora of resources, but I also love that they elevate individuals who stutter their own voices so that we can learn from them. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I would just wanted to add where there is a space that I've communicated with, or I found my artist who's a part of the project, Suzanne. I connected with the head of the organization over there, but it's called Space on Instagram. You can find them. They're a nonprofit. Their message is they create a world that listens better to people who stutter and everyone else. Space stands for stuttering people, arts, community, and education. They're an amazing foundation. and they've been so resourceful with finding individuals that I can connect with and help really attach essential stakeholders to this project. Because really, this project is, I would say I'm considerably able-bodied, right? So we need representation from this specific community that we're representing, and space is all about that. They're all about education. They're all about using arts as a form of comfortable self-expression. They have great programs. I think after school programs as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but their initiative is truly impactful and completely in line with what we're trying to go for initiation here. In terms of Jay is trying to find some sort of community, and unfortunately, in the short film, that's the community he probably shouldn't be attracted to, which is all about power. But I think towards the end of the film, we come around the bend, if you will, and we come to a good conclusion to a story, a better conclusion.
Okay, so folks, for the handle, it's Space to Stutter, all one word, is their Instagram handle. The Instagram handle for the film is Initiation Short Film, all one word. And if somebody wants to reach out to you or ask you questions or learn more from you, how can they reach you?
They can give me a call. I'm so comfortable with anything, but honestly, they can reach out to that short film page that we have, the Initiation Short Film, on Instagram if they want to learn more information. I'm also on Instagram myself at Shah Josh, SHAH Josh at it on Instagram as my handle. But those are the genuine ways that we can definitely communicate, and I can definitely provide more information about. And if you want to become part of the project as well, if you want to, what we're seeking as many stakeholders as possible. We're doing this really unique thing that a lot of people do in the film space. We're completely crowdfunded. We're trying to become completely crowdfunded by stakeholders. That could be SLPs. That could be stutterers. That could be, maybe you have somebody in your family that stutters and you understand this kind of story itself. So we're really reaching out and trying to create this story that, again, ties all these different ends together, and it's truly representative of the community that we're taking on in terms of the subject matter for this film. So, long story short, connect through the Instagram and also my own personal handle too.
Yes. Okay. So then, can I propose, because we close every session with Grandmas Love Money and where we can donate to. Can they donate to the crowdfunding link? And what is the crowdfunding link?
Right. We are on Seed and Spark right now. I'm not too sure, when it comes to the release of the episode, that might have ended so far. So I'll have to check in with the team over there if we can extend that crowdfunding, because I think we're going to end around February 15th or so. But if you have listeners that would want to support, please reach out to me personally or to the Initiation Short Film, and we'll figure out a way that they could hopefully financially, if not financially, then just a share or even a like on our post. Definitely get the word out, and then potentially I can come back when the film is completed. We're going into production next month or so.
Yes.
So I'd love to talk about that journey. Maybe part 3.
I would love that. And yes. And honey, this was so great. Thank you so much for coming on. Folks, this is truly a beautiful cause. So please be sure to check out Space to Stutter, Initiation Short Film on Instagram. We love it when we get 5-star reviews for First Bite. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and please tell the cast and crew and all of the stakeholders that have supported this and shared their experiences. We are grateful for y'all growing and adding to the arts for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for just allowing the time for me to talk about the project today, and also for what you do on the podcast. It's been wonderful so far. I've been having a lot of good laughs and listens as I hear Waffle roam around the living room along the way. But thank you, Michelle.
You're very welcome. Y'all, right before we went to record, she had the biggest vomit of all time, and my husband had to clean it. So this episode brought to you by Initiation and Waffles Emesis. So
couldn't have been better.
Nothing better. Whew, we survived.